this day. It's first Sunday in our Lent year as we approach the day of celebration of Easter. We are able to stop and sit and see what you have done for us. So Lord, today we ask for our hearts, our eyes, our minds to be open to your work, to your grace sent forth in your word. We ask this, Jesus, in your name. Amen. So if you're paying attention to Genesis 22, hopefully you're like me and you look at that story of Genesis 22 and you say, this is one of the most terrifying stories in the entire Bible. Yes? I sit there, again, I was sitting there, I'm like, well, how can I visualize this? Maybe I could bring Micah up and I could have a knife and I could traumatize my son forever, right? This is an absolutely astoundingly, terrifyingly personal story of this father and his son, his beloved son, and God has him going up on this mountain to sacrifice him. Could you do it? Jimmy can take Phil up on the mountain. No. I couldn't do it either. A little background, perhaps, would make this story a little more understandable in some ways. We have it actually pictured up on our stained glass. We actually have two of our stories today from the Bible, from our readings on our stained glass. Down here in the lower corner, we have this sacrifice of Isaac. There's Abraham with the knife. There's the angel intervening. Over here you have Jesus being baptized. Right? So you have both of these kind of things there. We'll talk more about that, but just to kind of get the visual representation, or at least somebody's visual representation of what was happening that day. You have this person, Abraham. His name becomes father of many. He goes from being the exalted father when he was Abram to being father of many. He's Abraham. From him there are going to be many, many, many who live. And so Abraham has this whole kind of thing going on. But Abraham is from a place called Ur of the Chaldeans. And he is a first generation worshiper of Yahweh. This is all new. Perhaps back in Ur, they had some human sacrifice. They definitely had idols. They definitely had some other things that were going on. But Abraham is this first generation worshiper of Yahweh. And so there's been a whole bunch of stuff that's already happened. We don't need to rehash the whole story of Abraham. But at least for Abraham, when God says, go and sacrifice your son, this probably shouldn't be too great of a difficulty for him to believe that God's could go ask that of their followers, right? I mean, for us here in this day, if God was to ask you to sacrifice your son, you'd be like, you're not God, right? So Abraham has this definite thing where perhaps he was acquainted with some human sacrifice somewhere along the way. But Abraham, in the story of Abraham, he actually has another son. He had another son with the woman named Hagar. Familiar with this? Hagar is Sarah's servant. When they find out they can't conceive, they go and she says, have a son with her. So he does. He goes off. He has a son with Hagar. Sarah ends up despising Hagar. They get sent out, driven out. Part of what happened here is that they try to take this promise from God that Abraham would be the father of many, and they try to take it into their own hands. They try to say, look, it's not happening in our time, so we're just going to make it happen, right? But Abraham, he goes up, he takes his son's grown a little bit. He goes up into Mount Moriah. It's believed to be the place where the temple would be in Jerusalem, the Temple Mount. There's only one other reference to it in the Bible in 2 Chronicles 3:1. And this reference says this is where Solomon built his temple. So, okay, so this is what you have. Also, so then it kind of puts a little perspective on all the other things that happen in Holy Week for us as Christians. We kind of see what's happening here, the sacrifices that are happening here in Jerusalem. Take your son and sacrifice him. This is the directive that God gives to him. And the whole sacrificial system that's developed later on in Leviticus is not really developed at this point in Genesis. You have two other sacrifices, or this is a second really kind of main sacrifice. Noah makes a burnt offering sacrifice. Here's a burnt offering sacrifice. But part of the idea that comes from the burnt offering sacrifice is that your animal, the animal that you sacrifice, is of the highest quality. So this is Abraham's son. This is his beloved son. This is his only son. This is the son that counts, the son from which Abraham is going to be the father of many. This is the highest quality. This is the son that God provided. This is the son that an angel sat with Abraham and said, you're going to have this one. This is really going to happen. This is one of the highest quality. But the burnt offering is something we'll have to do a whole thing on sacrifices and why these sacrifices. But a burnt offering sacrifice was very simply, it wasn't for like a particular sin. It wasn't like you got into a fight or an argument, so you make some kind of offering for this particular argument. A burnt offering was what happens when I cook, right? No, a burnt offering, it's a bad pastor joke, seriously. A burnt offering is this offering for sinfulness. It's sinfulness in general. It's sinfulness for people. Just it's not for a specific sin. It's just vaguely sinfulness. Okay? Or specifically sinfulness. And so the sacrifice of the sacrifice for the son was going to be a sacrifice for Abraham's sinfulness, for the sinfulness of humanity. And this is what God is calling him, is pulling him forward, is asking him to do. I mean, reflect on it. Make it a sacrifice for sinfulness. The sacrifice of his son was going to be a sacrifice that Abraham would have to make in promise. He had this promise from God that he was going to father many. That from him there was going to be all sorts of life down the line. Hebrews 11:19 says this about Abraham. See, Abraham believed God could raise even the dead. And so he's up there, he's ready, he's got the knife, and he believes that God will still be faithful to his promise, even as he's sitting there at this moment about to sacrifice his son. I'm amazed by this story. Amazed by it. It's so personal. It's so intensely this is your son. Just a little note. Sometimes we take Bible passages kind of out of their context, and we make this is a really good example of something that we can do with the Bible to understand it better in its context. This is a description, not a prescription. In this story, God is not asking you to go and sacrifice your son. Sometimes we read the Bible, we read stories like this and say, well, Abraham did it, so should I. Okay? This is just it's a little aside, but it's simply a description. Here's what God has asked Abraham to do. Here's what Abraham did. And now here's what God did. Here's what God did. There up on the mountain, as he's there ready with the knife, as he's ready with this sacrifice, God intervenes. He says, no, stop. Abraham, the offering that you're going to give is over here. I'm going to give you a different sacrifice. So Abraham would actually say of this mountain that this would be a mountain where the Lord will provide. It's huge into the theology of what is happening in Jerusalem and what happens further on. That this is a place where the Lord provides, where Yahweh provides. It's a different sacrifice. It is put out there. It's a substitution. Substitution. I don't know if any of you ever played sports, but watching sports, you'll see people get subbed in all the time, right? And this is just, you do it, this person's fresh, this person's worn out, this person's not good, this person's something. You know, I mean, you get people subbed in, subbed out all the time in sports. We have substitutions, teachers, right? What's the best day as a kid for you, right? When you got the substitute, yes, because that was goof off day, at least if you were me. I'm the only one who's mean in this room, so. But for me, yes, substitute, right? So sometimes substitute can carry all sorts of kind of different connotations, but for Abraham and for God, this substitute was going to be one who took for you. This is the entire theology of Leviticus, that the animal that would end up being sacrificed for you was a perfect substitute, so that your sin, your sinfulness, whatever it was put on to this animal. So that when this animal dies, it's truly sitting there dying for your sin. It is as if you were dying for your sin. This is how the entire sacrificial system goes up. So this is why when we get to the center picture, why Jesus does what he does. He's a substitution. God says, up there on the mountain, the Lord will provide. And while we should be there dying for our sin, the Lord says, I will give a substitution. Only he doesn't use an animal. I mean, this is where the story kind of comes back at us like a little boomerang. He doesn't use an animal. He uses himself. He uses his own life. There's no ram in the story of Jesus that magically appears and gets crucified. It's the lamb that goes to the cross. It's the lamb that has your sin, my sin, our sin put upon him, the sin offering put upon him, the burnt offering put upon him. And it's fascinating to me how much the story of Genesis can absolutely terrify me, but I can read through the story of Jesus like it's nothing. But it's the same thing happening. There's a Father, there's a Son, and the Son is given as a sacrifice. God gives his Son, his only Son. You can hear that in Abraham's voice. You know, my son. God tells him, your son, your only son. But God, he does not put us out there in need of our own sacrifice, in need to provide our own sacrifice, but he gives up himself. And so for Lent, as you kind of have this reflection, as you have this piece, you have these two stories with this angel interceding and this Isaac about to be killed, and Jesus entering into the work that he came for, to be your substitution, to take in your place the punishment, the wrath for sin. That is what we have. I mean, that is our message. That's Easter. That's Good Friday. That's all of it. This is what we've got. That God has gone in my place and provided for me life when I should have had death. That God has come in my place and been a substitute for you, for me. So as you reflect, perhaps this Lent, reflect on that. I mean, every day when you come in here, look up to the center. May your eyes be drawn just right up into because there is your substitute. There is your God. There he is for you. Amen. Almighty God, we ask for you to be with us. That we, Lord, would focus on how you have given yourself for us. Lord, may our hearts be set to see that whatever it is that we are encountering, whatever it is that we are facing, you have given your life for our lives. Lord, may this hope fill us. May this truth be part of what we do and who we are. Lord, be with us and bless us. In your name, amen. I invite you to